General Vrex, High Commander of the Jindar Empire's 7th Fleet, stood before the vast observation window of his spacecraft, staring down at Earth. The planet rotated below, vibrant and alive, a swirling mix of blues, greens, and whites. From his vantage point, humanity's home seemed deceptively peaceful. But he knew better. The surveillance feeds flashing across his console told a far different story. For over 3 weeks, Vrex had been tasked with studying the inhabitants of Earth. The Jindar Empire, ever expanding and insatiable in its conquest of new worlds, had taken an interest in humanity. The Council sought to determine whether this young species was worth assimilating or simply annihilating. To Vrex, it was another mission in a long and bloody career, a step closer to his inevitable retirement. Yet something about this planet stirred an unfamiliar unease within him. He turned back to his command chair, claws clicking softly against the metallic floor. The Jindar prided themselves on their cold efficiency. Their wars were fought with precision and purpose, devoid of the messy passions that plagued lesser species. Victory was a matter of strategy and superior firepower, not chaotic emotion. Yet as Vrex reviewed the countless conflicts humanity had waged throughout its history, he couldn't help but be struck by their sheer intensity. The screen before him displayed scenes from Earth's history: trenches filled with soldiers during World War I, cities engulfed in flames during World War II, the chaotic jungles of Vietnam, and the deserts of the Middle East. Each battle was more brutal than the last. Humans fought with desperation, ferocity, and a willingness to endure unimaginable suffering. They fought not only for survival but for ideas: freedom, justice, power, and vengeance. Vrex leaned forward, his golden eyes narrowing. Madness, he muttered, his voice a low growl. Yet he could not look away. Amid the carnage, he saw something remarkable: moments of bravery and sacrifice that defied logic. A soldier shielding a comrade with their own body. A nurse rushing into danger to save a wounded stranger. Civilians banding together to rebuild their shattered homes after the bombs stopped falling. The Jindar did not have such concepts. Sacrifice was calculated, a means to an end. Camaraderie was a tool for maintaining discipline. Compassion was considered a weakness. And yet, as Vrex watched these humans fight and bleed for one another, he felt a strange ache in his chest, a sensation he hadn't experienced in centuries. He switched the feed to live footage of an ongoing conflict, a civil war raging in a developing nation. The screen filled with images of bombed-out cities, ragged fighters, and frightened civilians. One image caught his attention: a group of children huddled in the corner of a ruined building, their eyes wide with fear. Nearby, a woman, presumably their mother, stood guard with an old rifle, her hands trembling but her gaze steely. "Why do you not flee?" Vrex wondered aloud. "You are outnumbered, outgunned. And yet you stay." A voice broke his reverie. General Vrex, came the cold tone of Commander Zara, his second in command. She appeared on a smaller screen, her armored visage imposing even in holographic form. "Have you completed your assessment of the humans?" "Not yet," Vrex replied, his tone neutral. "The Council grows impatient," Zara said. "If they are as chaotic and undisciplined as you report, there is no need for further delay. The invasion plan can proceed." Vrex hesitated. The Jindar valued precision and logic, and the logical choice would be to support the invasion. Humanity was disorganized and fractured, their weapons primitive by Jindar standards. Victory would be swift and total, but the thought of erasing this species, of snuffing out their fire, filled him with unease. "I will submit my report soon," he said finally. Zara frowned but did not press further. The transmission ended, leaving Vrex alone with his thoughts. He turned back to the observation window, his gaze lingering on the planet below. He had fought hundreds of battles, conquered dozens of worlds, and risen to the highest ranks of the Jindar military. Yet he could not shake the feeling that he had missed something crucial, something humanity seemed to possess in abundance. They were chaotic, yes, but also passionate. Fragile, yet unyielding. Flawed, yet capable of great beauty. For the first time in his long career, Vrex questioned the purpose of his existence. The Jindar saw war as the ultimate expression of order and power, but what if they were wrong? What if there was more to life than conquest? As the surveillance feed shifted to another battle, Vrex made a decision. He would continue his observation, not for the Council, but for himself. Somewhere in the chaos of humanity's wars, he hoped to find an answer to the questions that now haunted him. And for the first time in decades, the hardened general felt a spark of something unfamiliar, curiosity, and perhaps even hope. Vrex stood alone in the dimly lit command chamber of his warship, gazing at the holographic projection of Earth spinning slowly before him. Its beauty, once a distant observation, now felt closer, more personal. Yet the weight of his mission pressed heavily upon him. The Jindar High Council had sent a direct order: prepare Earth for invasion. Humanity's emotional volatility and penchant for chaos rendered them unfit for alliance. The Council's reasoning was sound, as always. The Jindar Empire thrived on precision, efficiency, and control. Allowing a species as unpredictable as humans to exist unchecked was a risk they wouldn't take. And yet, the images of humans fighting their wars lingered in Vrex's mind, acts of defiance, sacrifice, and raw emotion that defied the Council's cold logic. A low hum filled the chamber as Zara's holographic image materialized before him. Her imposing figure seemed to carry the authority of the entire empire. "General Vrex," she began, her tone sharp and impatient. "The Council demands your assessment. Is this species worthy of assimilation, or shall we proceed with eradication?" Vrex hesitated, his claws tightening against the edges of his console. "Their technology is primitive," he admitted. "Their society fractured. They would not withstand an invasion." "Then the path is clear," Zara replied. "Submit your findings, and we will send the fleet to cleanse the planet." "Clear?" Vrex's voice rose slightly, surprising even himself. "Perhaps, but these humans are not without value. Their resolve, their creativity. There is more to them than the chaos we see on the surface." Zara's eyes narrowed, her posture stiffening. "You grow sentimental, General. A dangerous weakness for one in your position. Do not forget your duty to the Empire." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Vrex in silence. He exhaled slowly, his chest rising and falling with a deep, unfamiliar tension. Duty. That word had defined his entire existence. For centuries he had fought, conquered, and killed in the name of the Jindar Empire. But for what purpose? To maintain an empire built on fear and subjugation? His gaze shifted back to the holographic Earth. He remembered the woman standing guard with her children, trembling but unwavering. He remembered the soldier shielding his comrade, the medic risking everything to save lives. These humans fought not out of fear but out of love, hope, and a fierce determination to protect what mattered to them. Something broke inside him then, a wall that had held firm for centuries. He could no longer follow orders that demanded the destruction of something so unique, so alive. Vrex moved swiftly. His claws danced across the console, disabling the ship's tracking systems and encrypting its signal. He erased all records of his mission, ensuring the Council couldn't trace him. As alarms began to blare in protest, he entered new coordinates into the ship's navigation system, Earth's atmosphere. His hands trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of his choice. For the first time in his life, Vrex was no longer a general of the Jindar Empire. He was a deserter, and he was free. The crash landing had been harder than Vrex anticipated. His ship had torn through Earth's atmosphere like a falling meteor, leaving a scar in the forested hillside where it finally came to rest. Smoke and sparks hissed from the broken vessel as Vrex emerged, his tall, armored frame towering over the wreckage. He quickly scanned his surroundings. A dense forest, its towering trees shrouded in mist. There were no immediate threats, but his sharp senses remained alert. He didn't have to wait long. The sound of snapping branches and cautious footsteps echoed in the distance. Vrex crouched low, activating his cloaking field. Humans. He had expected them to come, drawn by the ship's fiery descent. From behind the cover of a large tree, He watched as three figures approached. The leader, a grizzled man with weathered features and a rifle slung over his shoulder, moved cautiously. Behind him was a younger woman carrying a medical kit and a teenager with wide eyes filled with both fear and awe. "Careful, Daniel," the woman whispered. "We don't know what's out here." "Whatever it is, Sarah, it's not human," the man Daniel replied, his tone grim. Vrex had seen enough. These humans were unarmed or lightly equipped, hardly a threat. He disengaged his cloaking field and stepped into view. The humans froze. Daniel raised his rifle instinctively, his hands shaking slightly as he aimed at the towering alien. "Stay back," he barked. "I mean you no harm," Vrex said, his voice deep but calm. He raised his clawed hands in a gesture of peace. The humans exchanged nervous glances. The teenager, unable to contain his curiosity, blurted out, "Are you an alien?" "Jamie, hush," Sarah hissed, but her gaze softened as she studied Vrex. "I am Vrex," he said simply. "I am not your enemy." Daniel lowered his rifle slightly but kept his finger on the trigger. "If that's true, then what are you doing here?" That crash looked like it could have leveled half the forest. "I defected," Vrex admitted. "I left my people to learn from yours." His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. The humans could sense his sincerity, though they remained cautious. Over the next few days, Vrex stayed with the small group, hidden in the forest. They were hesitant at first, but as time passed, trust began to form. Vrex shared snippets of his story, his role in a vast empire, his disillusionment with endless war, and his fascination with humanity's resilience. In return, they taught him about their lives. Daniel, a war veteran, recounted tales of courage and loss from his time on the battlefield. Sarah, a medic, showed Vrex the importance of healing, not just wounds but hearts and minds. And Jamie, the curious teenager, introduced him to human art and music, sparking a sense of wonder in Vrex that he hadn't felt in centuries. For the first time, Vrex felt something he hadn't experienced in his long, war-torn life, a sense of belonging. Yet even as he bonded with these humans, a shadow loomed over them. The gendarme would not ignore his betrayal for long. For now, though, Vrex allowed himself to live in the moment, cherishing the lessons these humans taught him. In their strength and kindness, he began to understand what it truly meant to fight. Not for conquest, but for something worth protecting. The peace of the forest had always been fragile, but now it was shattered entirely. Vrex stood at the center of the camp, his golden eyes fixed on the sky. The gendarme ships had found him. Their engines hummed like a distant storm, growing louder with each passing second. "They're coming, aren't they?" Daniel asked, rifle in hand. His voice was steady, but his grip on the weapon betrayed his nerves. "Yes," Vrex replied, his voice calm yet firm. "And they will not stop until they have me." Sarah stepped forward, her face pale. "What do we do? If they're as dangerous as you say, we don't stand a chance." "You hide," Vrex said, turning to face them. "I will face them alone. This is not your fight." "It is now," Daniel said, standing his ground. "You saved us. We're not leaving you to die." Vrex studied him for a moment, admiration flickering in his expression. "Your courage is commendable, but the gendarme are relentless. If you fall, the boy and the healer will have no protection." Jamie, standing beside Sarah, clenched his fists. "We can help. I'm not just going to sit and watch." "No," Vrex said firmly. "Survival is your greatest strength. Use it." The sound of engines grew deafening as the first gendarme scout ship descended, its sleek black hull cutting through the canopy. It landed with precision, its landing gear hissing as it touched the ground. The airlock slid open, revealing three armored figures. Their weapons glowed faintly, and their movements were unervingly precise. The leader, taller and more imposing than the others, stepped forward. His voice, distorted through his helmet, carried a cold authority. "Vrex, General of the gendarme, you are charged with treason and desertion. Surrender now." Vrex stepped forward, towering over the humans behind him. His plasma gauntlets activated, glowing with energy. I renounced that title long ago. You are the traitors, for betraying the true purpose of our existence. The leader tilted his head. You've chosen these weaklings over your people. That is your folly. No, Vrex replied, his voice steady. It is my redemption. The Jindar charged. Vrex met them with ferocity, his plasma gauntlets flaring as he parried their blows. The clearing erupted in flashes of blue energy and the sharp clang of metal. Vrex moved like a storm, his strikes precise and devastating, but the Jindar fought with ruthless efficiency. From the shelter, Jamie watched in awe. We can't let him do this alone, he whispered. Daniel nodded. Stay here. He stepped into the clearing, his rifle raised. With a single shot, he distracted one of the warriors, giving Vrex an opening to strike. The leader, seeing his forces falter, turned his weapon on the humans. Vrex roared, throwing himself into the line of fire. The blast hit his armor, staggering him, but he stood firm. With one final, devastating strike, he felled the leader. As the Jindar ship powered down, silence fell over the forest. Vrex turned to the humans, his chest heaving. You didn't have to do that, Sarah said softly. Yes, I did, Vrex replied, his voice resolute. For the first time, I fight for something worth protecting. The humans exchanged glances, understanding the weight of his words. Together, they prepared for whatever would come next.